Hi everyone, and welcome to the Seattle Atheist Church. At the Seattle Atheist Church, we call ourselves an atheist church because you'll never hear anything supernatural promoted from the podium. The Seattle Atheist Church was founded on the principles of scientific naturalism and secular ethics. Truth claims are attempted here, and we stand ready to revise our thinking in light of new information. We attempt to be excellent to all conscious beings. We believe good works. We believe in good because good works in non-mysterious ways. So today I have a few announcements. This coming Friday is the first Friday movie night. I believe the title is going to be The Tenacious D, the Tinker Destiny.
I don't know, I've never seen it. But
Okay,
some,
it was
Tenacious D.
Yeah, it was one of our suggestions that got voted in. Also, this next Sunday is second Sunday board games. So that is first Friday movie night and then second Sunday board games the same weekend. Yes. Next week's topic is atheist curse words. That'll be an interesting topic. And also coming up this coming weekend is the Seattle International Beer Fest, which is always a good time. So, one reminder, please do RSVP on Meetup, even if you're a regular and you just show up normally anyway. That way folks who are sort of on the fence or who just discover us can get the impression that people are actually coming. Because nobody wants to be like the third person if there's only 2 people. But people are fine being like, 12th person if it's already 11. So just remember to RSVP. And finally, if you find these talks valuable, as I do, then please consider donating to support us. Your donations allow us to rent the room, provide refreshments, and continue to foster the community that we've grown here. It takes about 23 people donating $5 each week for us to break even. And any shortages covered out of pocket by Troy and I and the Walters. Of course, we'd love to do better than break even so that we can start building up a surplus that would let us have a presence at community events like Pride Parade and various street fairs. We'd like to make a donation in person here today. We accept cash in the jar behind you. And we also accept credit. We have a PayPal card reader here. And we also have a donate button on our website at seattleatheist.church. Another way you can contribute is to invite your friends and family. If you know someone who you think would enjoy what we do here, invite them along. And if there's someone from church that you haven't seen in a while and you'd like to reconnect with, reach out to them and catch up. Our group discussion gets even more valuable as we hear from more and more perspectives. Okay, so on with today's talk. The way we do it here is we have volunteers from the community to give the talks. And today we've got Sarah giving a talk on trauma stewardship.
Hey, good morning, y'all. I'm Sarah, and like Troy said, I'm going to talk to you today about trauma stewardship. I hope I can take like a quick dive into the concept and practice of trauma stewardship, and then we can spend more time, or most of our time, hopefully, having a really great and supportive discussion circle today. So why this topic? Why me? I first became aware of the concept of trauma exposure response when I was working and spending nights in a homeless shelter for young adults, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. twice a week, while also volunteering one night shift a week at the crisis clinic, one evening shift at People's Harm Reduction Alliance, which is the needle exchange. It was my attempt to escape the bubble of academia and visit the real world. But maybe I should have tried golf or something instead. Anyway, a workshop was offered through the shelter, and I went on a whim, only to discover Seattle has a hidden gem in the Trauma Stewardship Institute and a woman named Laura Vandernoot-Lipsky. So today I'd like to focus on sharing some of her amazing work and insight, as well as bringing in some other kind of sources that I've been exposed to. So let's dive right in. I have a few questions for y'all. You can just kind of quietly answer them in your head. How many of us, and I know there are a few people here, would consider yourself to be in a helping profession? Teachers, medical professionals, first responders, servicemen and women, behavioral health specialists, any other social welfare jobs, activists, organizers, so many people. Secondly, do any of you take care of a loved one on any level? The American Academy of Geriatric Physicians say that 1 in 4 households right now in the U.S., or actually this is a stat from like 10 years ago, so I'm sure it's grown, if anything. So 1 in 4 households in the U.S. Is caring for someone over the age of 50. And like I said, I think this trend will undoubtedly grow as societal demographics change. Thirdly, how many people would consider themselves to engage in caretaking behavior with family, friends, other loved ones, the planet? And then, are any of you, and we were talking about this before the talk, affected by the current political and social climate? A bunch of us went to the rally yesterday, immigration rights rally. And just witnessing the horrors of family separation at the border, and images of kids in cages and sounds of children's crying. I know that has really affected me the last few weeks. So the depth, scope, and causes of trauma are different for everyone. But the fact that we all are affected by the suffering of others and our planet, we have a trauma exposure response, and that's universal. So the concept of a trauma exposure response is kind of growing and slowly coming to the forefront as like a larger social concern, rather than something that's an issue with an isolated individual. So wider attention has really attracted researchers working to kind of look at the societal implications. Many of these pioneering researchers have given our personal experience of being affected by others' pain a variety of names. So just quickly, some people call it, I'll be using the term trauma exposure response, but some people say compassion fatigue. That's common, I think a lot of people have heard that. Vicarious traumatization, or simply secondary trauma. So for the purposes of today, I'd like to include trauma exposure response under a larger rubric or umbrella, that of trauma stewardship. So quickly, now another question. How many of us have spent time developing an understanding, or just even thinking of how our exposure to the suffering of others can take a toll on us, whether professionally or personally? I know I haven't, especially in relation to my friends or family. Importantly, trauma always creates a ripple effect, like similar to a pebble being thrown into a still pond. The initial impact creates repercussions that can expand almost infinitely, reaching and having an effect on many people who didn't experience the blows firsthand. The shockwaves we move beyond individual caregivers to influence the systems and organizations in which we work and live, and ultimately then society as a whole. The harms of trauma exposure response radiate this way, but so do the benefits of trauma stewardship. It was at this first workshop back in 2012 when I first heard Vander Lipsky describe trauma stewardship. She stated it refers to the entire conversation about how we come to this work, whether it's personal or professional, how we're affected by it, and how we make sense of and learn from our experiences. It's just a way to bear witness to trauma without surrendering our personal ability to live fully. It's not simply an idea or a concept. It's more of a daily practice through which individuals or organizations can tend to the hardships, trauma, or pain experienced by humans, by other living things, and our planet themselves. Alternatively, it can be defined as caring for or tending to and responsibly guiding others who are struggling, while at the same time not internalizing others' struggles. And not assuming others' struggles as our own, while still possessing the ability to meet urgent needs in sustainable and intentional ways. So a bit of a definition. The dictionary defines stewardship as the careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. When we talk about trauma in terms of stewardship, like I said, we must remember that we're entrusted with people's stories and with their lives in some cases. This is both an honor, I believe this is both an honor and incredible, tremendous responsibility. And as stewards, we create space for and honor others' suffering, but like I said, without assuming their pain as our own. We care for others to the best of our ability without taking their path. And just to participate in trauma stewardship is to remember the privilege of being called to help. When I proposed this topic at our planning meeting a couple weeks ago, a church member who was sitting next to me actually was kind of, what's that all about? You know, what's the topic? And so I said very briefly, just caring for yourself while caring for others. And he told me a story of one of his friends whose parent has cancer and how it had really taken a toll, and their friend group had noticed that this was really taxing on them. And then this gentleman said, I guess he wasn't good at stewarding. So let's just all think back to a time, if this has happened to me, I don't know if it's an experience anybody else shares. We were told by others, or told others, I guess, that something was just different about them. Like I said, I know that I've experienced this and I've witnessed this in a variety of kind of people on campaigns or people doing, organizing work, social justice, economic justice organizing work. So I guess the first step to repair what isn't working is to understand it. And in that kind of vein, Vander Noot-Lipsky mapped out 16 warning signs of trauma exposure response. Not going to go through all of them, but things like feeling hopeless and helpless, you sense that you can never do enough, hypervigilance, anger, cynicism, guilt, fear, an inability to empathize or wanting to numb out addictions, and just think we've all experienced the chronic exhaustion or physical ailments that can come when you have the stress of secondary trauma or caring for somebody. So how do we escape the constriction and suffering that often kind of accompanies trauma exposure response? So The most important technique in trauma stewardship is learning to stay fully present in our experience, no matter how difficult. I know some folks here groan when they hear the word mindfulness, writing it off as woo, but it's really just simply paying attention in a particular way, with purpose, being in the present moment, being non-judgmental. So I'm the church proponent of secular meditation and mindfulness, so I wanted to get that in. Additionally, I guess, to kind of figure out where we're coming from, we need to map our trauma exposure response. So the transformation that takes place within us as a result of our exposure to trauma, to the suffering of other living beings, or the planet, say that, can result from, deliberate or unintentional exposures, formal or informal contact. And so just the ways in which the world looks and feels different to you, or you feel yourself looking or feeling different as a result. And it's just, most of us, I think, in our heads might be starting to identify some of our individual trauma stress or trauma exposure responses right now. So now, what do we do with this trauma exposure response? How do we prevent those ripples from continuing to spread? How do we integrate the effects of trauma exposure response so that we become effective trauma stewards? So as we map our trauma exposure response, we can shift to kind of a more active phase of our journey. And I would hasten to say that trauma stewardship is about action, for me at least. And so emphasizing action, self-reliance, potentially developing a new vision for ourselves and our nature. So Lipsky has some tips, 4 quick tips. First, just create a space for inquiry. Look back at your past, what events and decisions do you consider the most crucial to who you are? What choices have you made? Are there themes there? And then I guess, first of all, is trauma mastery a factor for me in my own life? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And is this working for me? Secondly, choose your focus. Where are you putting your time and energy? Examine, where you're putting your focus. Thirdly, finding balance. Fully engaging with our loved ones outside of your work or outside of caregiving. Practicing gratitude. I'll say that again, just practicing gratitude. And then something I'm sure we've all heard a million times, just engage in self-care activities. And that means different things to different people, but just healthy lifestyle choices, making sure you have a robust social support network, pursuing personally meaningful activities, loads of things. I could go on and on about self-care. And then lastly, building compassion and community. So practicing compassion not only for others, but more importantly, I think, for yourself. And just simply be patient. Be patient with others and with yourself. And then lastly, create a microculture for yourself. A microculture, just basically community, but I like the term, because it reminds us that our chosen group can potentially nurture yourself or nurturing us by identifying and emphasizing a different set of values than the culture as a whole may have. And I think that's a description that kind of fits the Seattle Atheist Church to a T. And with that, I guess, just to finish up, like using our understanding of trauma stewardship, and I've been so brief and simplistic, so I apologize. By developing a really truly deep sense of awareness of what's needed to care for yourself while we're caring for others and the world around us. I think we can use trauma stewardship to greatly enhance our potential to work for change as well, ethically and with integrity for years to come. So with all that, I'd love for us to have a great discussion today. Thanks.